Okay, just an attempt. Let's see what I can do. So this is the lever arm. From there to there. Finished. But the lever arm begins there to there. And that lever arm is that single lever arm. So you've got a single point, starts there, fixed point, lever arm. You can then rotate to there. That lever arm is a double length, so that's radius, this is diameter. It has a double split there and there, has bending force heads off that way, and ring tension heads off that way at the base. So the ring tension that's holding the sphere together is currently at the base there as a ring. Can you see it? Cupping the base of the ring. Bearing in mind this is a differentiated sphere, this is a slice of the sphere of hydrogen bond energy. So you're tracking the wave break and it just gets complex. That's it. And so this is, you can see this is actually orthogonal action, creating a simple motion of bending force. So, position 1, you lift the origin point of the lever arm, the center of the pin 3 moves to there, and pin 2 is now here. So that point there, of the lever arm, the double lever arm from there to there, remember, as that single lever arm moves to there, the double lever arm is trying to force up to there, and the double lever arm of ring tension is forced to there. An unstable condition. The next position, as this continues to rotate, is that this lever arm is now in this position 2, and it forces the origin point from where it was, where we raised it, to here. And this is key, it's only moved one segment, and this has moved 2 radians, that's only moved 1 radian. Can you see? And so in order for the completed move to go, so from when you want to move the radial arm from the mass to its finishing position, that accelerates. It must. It accelerates to get to there, because you need to complete the motion, the collapse of the wave function. And so at point 2, you are locked in an equilateral triangle relationship with the ring tension now. So that the ring tension which you moved to the base, because you've moved the bending now to this position, there is a central position, a new axis point is formed there, pin B. Yeah? And that you've now set the trigger. Okay, so when you move that to position 3, the lever arms here will snap together, scissor action, and they'll be clamping together because they're in the same plane. So those lever arms can't overlap. And think about the rigid bodies as the little ball bearings fixed to the ends of the levers, the pins. The pins are just going to crash into each other and push into each other. And bearing in mind there's acceleration here, and equal and opposite reaction here. And there's twisting force. And this is where the chirality comes from, because this force will be chiral compared to this one, right hand and left hand. Okay? So if you imagine that you're looking at a single ring, right? Just a single planet. Yeah, there's a single planet. Let's pull that apart and let's see what the forces are that hold it together. And you walk up to the elastica. So remember, the elastica is the boundary inside the planet about which the action takes place. Yeah? So there's the vibration level there is the piezoelectric elastica boundary. If you could touch the elastica, you reach up to it and pull it, right? You could pull it back so far, easy. Just pull it back, soft as, just do that. When you get to there, it's going ping, it will ping out your hand. Counter snap action, because you've loaded the trigger. Yeah? When you pulled it back, if you pull that point back, that distance, that is only going to move to there, not to there. So because you're dealing with the acceleration. So you've loaded the trigger, bang. Yeah, you can only move it from there to there, to stability. Okay, so that's the idea of the lever arm taking the breaking of the wave function in quantum and saying it doesn't collapse. It causes a rigid body moment, an instant of clamping, and that instant is experienced in the rigid body itself. Remember, this is a single entity. And so I'm just taking that idea and pushing it through to its nth degree. Okay? And so this was the first model that I did, showing this is heat entropy motion. And so the collapse of the wave function is actually the bending of heat and the ring tension of heat are 2 different functions of each other. And so you end up with an anistropy. You end up with a motion of cold moving to hot. within the bounds of the sphere of homogeneous temperature that we've set. And here's the lever arm again, see it? Setting everything up. And now it begins to build something exciting happen here at the source and at the clamping. You've got a hole in the system of hydrogen bonding energy that's allowing something in, mass energy in, and it's going to source, and the source is here at the center. And you can see when you pulled it apart, you've actually got 3 centers created, and then a bending is created of that center, pushing that center to a different position, either there, or there. And then I can see, so then here I have the idea of these 2 things are clamping together. If you're looking from source, you're looking at the clamping force, you can actually see, because of the chirality, that all this force clamping decides which way they ride over each other and which one is in front of the other. So in this one I've shown what's actually happening in reality, that negative is in front of positive when we're looking at it. And that's what's wrong. Because you can see how the twists of the water coming in from the outside of the universe comes in and gets ground up. How does it get ground up? What's the motion? What's the power? Is it negative or positive? And that's where choice comes in of your pi tensor. Okay, so that's the model now of inside the hydrogen binding energy molecule of water, showing the different heat zones, the relationships between the heat zones, and why that sets up an anisotropy of motion from here, from cold over the top to hot. Because of the way that the vortex, the twin standing vortex works, there must be motion of balance, and here's the balancing factor, and there is work done, heat and work done. Okay, and so then that brings us to this one, was Da Vinci's, brought me to Da Vinci Vitruvian Man, and this is now here's the lever action. I've tried to draw it in terms of bending, black, pink ring tension, and then blue membrane forces. And so you can see that what you're setting up is the membrane potential forces between bending and tension, and here's that mechanism. And that when you tick it through now, this was nice, so here's the lever arm, perhaps this will be clearer. Here's my lever arm starting position. Here I am position 1, then I move to position 2. So that's the motion of mass moving through its own weight, Newton. When it's in this position, we're taking theoretical rest time. And I'm saying that this is the coherent state and it's unstable. And you can see why it's unstable, that will wobble. This is so finely set up. When it gets to the theoretical position where it's trying to clamp, you can see here are the bending forces set up with 2 positions. 2 positions for the state, the energy state. And so that's position 3, set up for the energy to do work. Now what does the work that energy does? Well, I'll go back to where we were. Here, this energy can't sit there. It creates itself. It is creating the bending from being like that, so that the forces of bending actually look like this. And now we can assemble them. They'll go snap, 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 counter snap action, where you go, the main support goes to a center point, because that's a cone. Yeah, so there's a cone now, an orthogonal cone. That's a disc, a lens, 3-dimensional underneath there. So I squared, represented by the imaginary number here. And that I squared standing up will flick up to this position here because of the acceleration that it has, equal and opposite reaction. So that as the 2 meet, the velocity meets the acceleration, yeah, but the acceleration has used its momentum, the velocity has not. The velocity moves the acceleration to a different point, there, 108, and that's a flower of life angle set. So that moves to there. This moves to there, so pin 3 now moves back to there, to its position, to its main bent position here, and sets up the balance perspective of the 2 vortices. Okay. So this gets me to the simple model of setting up the first position, where I've gone bend, snap, counter snap, cone, standing, vortex, pocket vortex, pushes to that position, main vortex pushed over to that position, creating the main energy centers here at pin 3 over the origin, creating the 3-body support system. Yeah. And there's Vitruvian Man beginning to build, and here he is. When I fill it with phi ratio spheres, I can see that the relationship between the sacral and the center of bending of the circle is the golden ratio boundary of phi circles. Because these are phi spheres, these are cavitation that are growing, because remember the I² is orthogonal. There it is, the lens bowl, right? And it's meter squared per second squared, meter squared inside, second squared out squared, and it has a mass, it's a kilogram. So the meter squared is a kilogram meter when we measure it from outside, hence newtons. But it's actually in quantum, it's meter squared, second squared, more useful. We don't need the mass. And that setup being held so that when I push down here, the spring mechanism lifts me up, gives me buoyancy. So pushing down makes this thing more buoyant because the cavitation increases, the volume increases of water, doesn't it? When you stress water, the strain response is to increase volume. And that's because it's held together by the iconic twin vortex energy. This is from Levy. And then here's the meaning of life. 4 to 2 to 1 twist ratio. And the deflections are 137 and 144 because of that's 144, that's 137 back. Okay, you'll see later. Okay, that's that. That takes me to that page, and you can see we've actually got real elements now of the pocket vortex from Dr. Levy's main vortex and pocket vortex. Pocket vortex, main vortex. Support. Okay, support. So then I went to Vitruvian Man and realised I found something amazing, that I found the spring arch. And so the spring arch is what this is all about, not the square. The circles that Da Vinci draws are misleading us because they're based on real-time Newtonian, although that wasn't around at the time, but Newtonian perspective. This is internal, inside forces that hold the elastic of the planet together. And when you do that, you find that it's actually, this is the planet, produces seed for herself through the sacral union of a human being. Yes, my friends, so the warm body that enters, the warm body that we created from the bending forces earlier now arrives through that mechanism of force at the center of a single hydrogen bonding energy, which I've shown as a single entity here. And that the counter snap now comes through even more detailed. This is when the force arrives in the force state. You remember at position 2, I said we create this state, so position 3, so we create this state. Right? So what I'm saying is that, but that force can't exist. So what happens is that sets up a structural architecture of strength that's resisting bending force, which is there's a rotation, there's a hypercubic tensile structure with a vortex axis and a lens, which we set up in the previous one. Yeah. So the vortex axis is the pocket vortex deciding where it's going to go. So here's the snap. There's the 108. There's the 144. There's the reaction either side from the smashing of that way round. You're going to get reaction either side, creating that tensile strength. Membrane potential is created there. 1, 2, 3. And that reflects back and sets it up again over the other side, and that's why it goes back 137. So 144 out, 137 back to set up the balance of the 3 points of the tension overall. And now you've got the spring arch constructed with its various centers of bending, which actually create the finished article. So this is the moment of thought, the conscious mass moment. So in fact, that force state, in fact, looks like that force state because it includes the human being. And then you can take the centers of bending that are created and return them back, and you can see that they're the chakras and how they relate to each other. Yeah. And so that's showing that mankind is loved by God under the arc of light. It's up to us to make the choices we need to make sure that our sexual behavior is immaculate, so that when the universe gives us life in the form of new versions of ourselves, we put it into a beautiful home where it knows it's going to be loved. And then this is my last, I'm doing this now, I haven't finished this. In pencils, you can't clean it very well, can't see it very well, but look what it does. Look at the golden arch. Look at the man. Yeah. See how the arc will micro crack. If I pull these points together, the arc will resist by cracking. Yeah, micro cracking all the way on the outside surface. If I push those apart, it'll resist by micro cracking on the inside surface. And the boundary will be the tension, the elastic of tension itself. And it's that motion of that vibrating in and out, micro-cracking either side of light that creates the strength of hydrogen binding energy. I'll keep it that way. I hope that was useful. Never like looking at the camera. See you later.